Welcome, and thank you for joining Minding Your Brain. My name is Candace Gantt. I am a traumatic brain injury survivor and the executive director of the Mind Your Brain Foundation. My guest today is Marie Beattie, the mother of a brain injury survivor. My hope today is to raise awareness of the traumatic brain injury community, called TBI, the 5.3 million Americans living with disabilities because of a traumatic brain injury. We're going to talk about struggles and the lifelong challenges of a loving caregiver. And in the end, celebrate the love between mother and daughter. Marie, thank you for joining me today and for sharing your journey as a caregiver. I needed a tissue when I first heard about Corey's accident and immediately wanted everyone to know what a remarkable mother you are.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having us and or having me to share our story, and welcome to our home, this new age interviewing. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. Thank you for welcoming us into your home. Can you take us back to October 2nd of 2010 and tell our viewers about Corey's accident just 2 weeks shy of her 18th birthday?
Yes, and it's so funny. I always stumble at this part. I promise I'll be better. Corey was a senior in high school, and she had started, she was going out with friends, and because she was a senior, I extended her curfew from midnight to, an extra hour or so. And she was going out with a group of friends dancing, and on their way home, she was a passenger in a car. She was about a mile from our home. And when the driver was taking a left to head home, a truck was speeding and T-boned Corey's door at 72 miles an hour. She had massive injuries, as you can well imagine. Mm-hmm. So when the call came in and I went to the hospital, they told me that she had a broken neck, left clavicle, there was pelvic fractures, she had a broken femur, the right leg. But her worst injury was a traumatic brain injury with a diffused axonal, they called it a diffused axonal injury with global shearing. And I had no idea what that meant. When you see Hollywood and you see accidents and you see comas and concussions, it's like, okay, so when's she going to wake up? So that night was the first time that my education in brain injury began. And I've learned a lot over 10 years.
Remarkable story. And I know from a mother's point of view, how heart-wrenching that must be to tell us about it. So I thank you. So tell us about her recovery. So you asked, when will she wake up? How long will it be? All the questions that we would ask. Tell us about her recovery, the successes, the setbacks. How did that go and how long?
Well, to begin with, our story comes from our perspective of severe brain injury. Again, first education was, what's the difference? I had no idea. She was in the ICU for 3 weeks and then went to Bryn Mawr Rehab in Malvern for 9 months. So, she had died twice the first week. So truly, surviving was the first success. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, any progress is success. And the fact that I still have a sense of humor, that's another big success. But, Corey had a complete do-over. She had to literally relearn everything. She was an infant, was more advanced than she when we started. So, she had to hold her head. She had to sit up. She had to learn how to relearn how to move all her arms and legs. She had to relearn how to blow her nose. She eventually began to speak. That took almost 2 years. She had to learn how to walk. with a gait belt and assistance. That took close to 3 years. Her greatest effect of this injury, which again, there's physical limitations and different abilities, but the unseen is her memory loss. Corey has severe short-term and long-term memory loss. And I bring this up because memory loss is a tricky thing. Many times, because of slurred speech, people assume that she has lost intellect as well. Memory loss is not the loss of intellect. And although she can't recall a word, or she can't recall, or she doesn't process things the same way, it does not mean that she doesn't know. It just means that she hasn't relearned how to communicate that. And a perfect example, a current perfect example of this is Corey had a job prior to her injury. So when we show her money, for instance, she does not know what the individual bills are, and she does not know what the individual coins are. But when I put the currency and the coins in a cash box and we talk about ordering food or whatever, she can give exact change, which is phenomenal. I mean, the brain is so fascinating. I am, as a mom, I'm always pushing her to improve and get better, but I'm also like a scientist and a researcher. I'm thinking, wow, okay, so I have always treated her as the day before the injury, not the day after. So everything that we do, whatever it is that I ask of her, I'm trying to find what she needs to relearn. And then once I find out what her current ability is versus what we hope to achieve with her, that's how I know what the approach is and the activity and so on. So that this is just a perpetual daily question for her.
Indeed, I love that you're teaching us everything you've learned. I appreciate that. That keeps us understanding the journey, not only the emotional, but the intellectual piece of it.
And as with anything that you relearn, it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And with Corey, our setbacks, could be daily, depending on what happens in a day. I must point out that, in November of 2016, she came down. We have a chairlift that comes from upstairs to our foyer. And then we walk into the kitchen. She stood less than 1.5 feet from me without waiting for me and fell and hit her head on our foyer and lost consciousness. So technically, she's now had 2 brain injuries. But that second one erased 70% of everything that she gained the first 6 years. So now, we are back to day 1, only this time I know too much. So this time it was hard. This time I knew this is, we're another long haul, so to speak. But, her daily, because of the memory loss, the daily setbacks would include anxiety and
the emotional piece of it.
Exactly, and result in behavioral issues. So Corey can sit in front of you and have a conversation and be very present because that's it. She doesn't have recall to say, oh, mom's going to go out, or mom or Caitlin's coming over. Her sister Caitlin comes over 5 days a week, and Corey does not remember that Caitlin is here on any given day. So because of memory loss, she also can't self-soothe. So, you and I have developed, that we tried this, it failed. So I remember what I did. Well, she doesn't. She has no memory. And so that gives heightened anxiety. It then makes separation anxiety because she does know me, but what happens if I'm not there? I don't know if that person can take care of me. I don't know that person's going to. So, behavioral issues are still very present. So you have your physical challenges, but the cognitive and the emotional issues are equally as daunting on a daily basis.
Indeed. And so remind me, she does not recognize Caitlin, her sister, or she does, she just doesn't know her schedule coming and going?
So schedule is an issue. So I keep calendars everywhere to help her, but she does not remember that Caitlin is here. When she sees Caitlin, she knows her. When she sees her brother, John Paul, she knows him. However, she doesn't know after they've left that they were here. So remember that movie, 50 First Dates?
Yes.
Well, it's 50 seconds, basically.
It is just, like you say, a daunting lifestyle that you're leading now. So how do you cope with that? What's your support system? What do you do as a caregiver to manage how you survive this traumatic brain injury?
Well, just like Corey, I have good days and bad days. Support in the beginning, it was tremendous. Family, community, everybody rallied. As time went on, within the first, say, 5 years, we had healthcare agencies with multiple nurses to help us. We had Bryn Mawr Rehab outpatient. We had her high school until she turned 21. Our community, maintained contact. My family, thank God, I have them. The cousins were running fundraisers for the first 5 years, and we were pulling together. But today it's 10 years later, and my right arm, my right hand, my best friend, my co-caregiver, my media person, Caitlin, is here 5 days a week. I do have one nurse that comes in 4 nights a week, not because those are the limited hours, just because continuity of care coming from home healthcare agencies is very, very difficult to deal with. We get to see John Paul and his wife and kids frequently. My family, my dad and my siblings and my nieces and nephews. I have a few key girlfriends that I don't know what I would do without. They're great. You need your circle.
You need a net. You need your safety net and your security system.
Exactly right. And then my neighborhood, my neighbors, we've lived here for 30 years now. So we've kind of all grown up together in the same neighborhood, which is really neat. But I guess, now the balance is finding the individuals that can lend me the emotional support that I need. Corey doesn't necessarily need emotional support because she has no memory. She doesn't know, thank God, that's probably a blessing. But also to find individuals to help with the physical care of Corey still, to relieve not only me, but also Caitlin, so that I'm a mom of 2 other people. So, I want time with my other kids, and that's hard to get because there aren't very many people to help with Corey to caring for her, while that gives me the ability to go be with my other kids. Coping, I'm tired. You would think after 10 years, this was getting easier. It's getting harder. I'm aging. I am emotionally and physically fatigued because I do have a memory. So watching milestones of other individuals and friends and watching life move on for many people, that's, triggering for me. And I have come to learn that I am still grieving on a daily basis. It's not necessarily grief that I can move through. It's grief that's very, very present because it's always there.
Usually see it every day.
Exactly. And I've lost a social life. You know, people think, oh, I don't know what's the right time to call, or maybe she can't get somebody. So invitations stop. That's kind of hard.
Like,
And now with the pandemic, we're further isolated. So, actually it's pretty funny because now that the pandemic is here and everyone is saying, oh, I can't go out, or, oh, I can't go to the restaurant, or I can't go out to here or there, or I can't see my friends, and I sarcastically want to say, oh, welcome to brain injury.
welcome to my world.
Exactly. Welcome to the art bubble.
Yes.
But it's harder to get out, to have the opportunities to experience an enriched environment, or, do activities outside the home. We're limited to the space that we have here now.
Now, do you have the opportunity to take Corey out? Well, obviously not that often now, but prior to this, or what is your hope for the next year or two? Can you?
Definitely.
We're going to talk about her harness system in a minute, but transportation and her mobility.
Yes. Corey, we tried to be very active. We would go to my son's home to visit. We would go to my daughter's home to visit. We would go to Longwood Gardens and walk around there. We would go for walks to the mall. We would go to the grocery store. And again, all of these enriched environments were used to multitask, so to speak. Yes, she was physically walking for whatever length of time she could, but then I would say things like, "Oh, look, blueberries are on sale. What do you think is a better deal? Is it a quart? Should I get a quart or a pint?" Exactly. And then as she's holding on to the grocery cart, taking steps, I would have her then reach for whatever. So I was always integrating PT, OT, cognitive, whatever. We would do mapping of the grocery store. So we would make our grocery list and then say, okay, so what's the best way to get through the grocery store so we don't waste any steps before you get tired? If I want blueberries, what department do I go to? And she'd have to say produce, we would.
Educational.
I'm going to be throwing these things out.
That's great. That's great. I'm pleased to share all this with this audience so that they know your lifestyle and they get to know you a little bit better, and especially Corey. So let's talk about Corey. I know that you've got some adaptive measures in your home, and we'd love to take a look at that and tell us how that's changed in your world. Why the culinary piece? I'd love to explore that.
So when Corey was a senior, she had decided that she wanted to go to Johnson & Wales to study culinary arts. So when she was in the hospital and she was semi-conscious, and, to try to pull her out and I would bring fresh spices and I would have her smell and try to get some sort of, reaction from her. And we are always watching a cooking show. We are always watching, reading, and then reading a recipe helped us with sequencing and her telling me what goes where and whatever. She can still crack an egg with one hand. It's funny, Candace, I am not a PT, an OT, speech therapist or cognitive therapist, but I don't know if you remember MacGyver, the old show. The kids call me MomGyver, and I play all of these roles at home. I can adapt anything, any game, any life activity, and turn it into therapy without her realizing that she's working out.
Brilliant. And that's why that I think you're going to get the Mother of the Year award. It just is remarkable how you've been able to adapt to all the changes in your life.
Well, the greatest piece to this now, as it certainly has evolved over 10 years. She couldn't do all of these things in the beginning. She was very, very limited to movement. She literally came home moving these two fingers and her right leg from the knee down. That was it. So over the last 10 years, we have used her passion, what I call passion therapy, her cooking therapy. She comes alive when she's cooking. And, we have something called an activity menu, and I will list, general exercises, but also fun things to do, whether it's baking with Caitlin or cooking dinner or making her own lunch or whatever. And this activity menu, especially around cooking, gets her very, very excited, and it empowers her independence. And she then, instead of my saying, okay, this is what we're going to do, she chooses. So then she is an active participant instead of a passive observer. Mm-hmm. And she feels as if now she is contributing to the family by cooking or helping me empty the dishwasher or, helping to make breakfast or whatever it is.
This is her opportunity to give back to the community, give back to the family, and be a valuable member of the family. I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
description.
Prepare meals that we donated to the local church for Meals on Wheels. So she is giving back to everybody that helped us as well.
Marie, now I want to turn my attention to Corey herself and this culinary skill that she has. Can you show us in the kitchen how she moves around and what adaptive tools you're using?
Yes.
To empower her to feel that energy and that excitement.
Yes. So we have, fortunately, we were very lucky to have participated through the University of Delaware for a research program on something called Harness House. And what this is a freestanding system that helps her move about. So once you put a harness on her, I buckle her in at her shoulders. And this is a freestanding system that runs the rectangle of my kitchen. So once Corey is in and attached to her shoulders, she can literally turn 360 degrees if she needs to. It is a weight support system, so she cannot fall, so I am not afraid of her falling and hitting her head again. She can turn, the earliest days I would have her come to the kitchen, to the sink and stand and, PT and reach for the sink, OT. Now she's helping me do pots and the dishes after she cooks. She can then, come over and cook, or if she needs something in the refrigerator, she can come over. So she has full mobility. I'm never more than, 2 steps away just in case. However, she can do laps around the kitchen. She can move. She can get things out of the pantry. She loves it. She helps me.
Place.
Oh my gosh, it's just terrific. In fact, funny that you say that because one of our spoon holders happens to be the kitchen is our happy place.
Nice.
And then over the years, I have collected a number of adaptive tools that help her cook. So, her left hand is still very weak. So I will use a tea fork, which again, I thank all of my OTs for teaching me all of the tricks. I can't take credit for 90% of it. I'm a good student as well. She'll stab a onion and then be able to cut. Well, in the early days, she couldn't even cut with her right hand. So I bought adaptive knives. We use a rolling pin just to exercise. We have a whisk that moves by moving up and down, and then that helps her. I have sticky grip mixing bowls and custom or everyday cutting boards. A rocker knife helps her get spices done, and now this. You can get, anybody uses this pours olive oil, but everything that I see, can be adapted. This is a better visual for her to look down as she's mixing and pouring. But in the very beginning, I color coded everything so that she knew what size everything was by color.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I love this. So what I wanted to ask you next, Marie, is to tell us about your blog, because you have a website, Recovery Time. Yes. And I'd love to hear how this has evolved. This has really been part of your passion and your new work that you're doing.
Yes. Recovery Time started just with, Christiana Hospital, where she was, had a means of communication called the care pages. And for 6, 7 years, I posted nearly every day. And it started out as a way to just inform the community about Corey's progress and her chronicling and so on. But then it became letters to Corey and letters to myself. We now have turned it into a website so that we can post our seminars, our documentary. We can work on education for advocacy. We now are giving professional seminars and webinars, and we're training college students in PTOT and speech, and we train nurses. We also teach, that helps research and education. But families are my big, but I'm now being called regularly to help other families to learn how to advocate, how to manage their home, how to renovate their home, how to, where to get supplies. I've become an Army supply sergeant, moving furniture, chairlifts and walkers and so on. So, it's also become a good source for me to have a career so I don't lose myself in Corey's recovery as well.
That's so important. I think that you still have a purpose. Yes, you're a mom and you've got so many appointments to attend to and this educational series that you do every day for Corey, that you have time for yourself, and it's fulfilling. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good thing because, life does go on. And, my career, I was a teacher when I started out, and then I was in sales. So now I am teaching how to advocate, and I'm teaching families, and I'm public speaking and giving seminars, et cetera. So, that's where my passion is now, is to give back to those that gave us.
That advocacy is so important. I absolutely agree. We have a whole community that may not be aware of traumatic brain injuries or acquired brain injuries, concussions. And I think that's a role that you're so passionate about, and you're fulfilling it so well.
I have one quick tidbit for anybody that might want to know what to do to help a family. And I would say most caregivers don't know what to ask for. So a great rule of thumb is to think of chores that you may not like. So if you could volunteer to mow the lawn or shovel snow or weed the gardens, or send a card of encouragement or a phone call, or keep those invitations coming to include your friends in your life. If you have the means, send a gift card to a grocery store or a restaurant, or show up with a bag of groceries with the staples. Life goes on as it should, but sometimes it gets lonely in that recovery bubble.
And not only the following year, but 5 years and 10 years.
10 years.
We still need you. Marie, thank you so much. You're a saint in my eyes. I tell you, you're just a remarkable woman and mother. Thank you for joining me today. And my thoughts and prayers are always with you. It was such a pleasure to meet you. And I thank you for your time today to tell this community how what goes on outside their homes, or maybe at the house next door.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share.
Pleasure to talk with you.